whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the testimony given by John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." When they said to him, "Well, who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" He said, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord,' as the prophet Isaiah said." Now they had been sent from the Pharisees. They asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you are neither the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" John answered them, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal." This took place in Bethany, across the Jordan, where John was baptizing. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you,
Lord, may the words I speak be those you want us to hear. Amen. On Friday evening, carol service and a lovely tea, I drove Valerie Peters home. And in some sense, we took the story of God bringing light into the world through the gift of Jesus out into the darkness of a winter's night. Like last year, we did not take the direct route home. We drove very slowly through Henleys, looking at the lights that have sprung up in people's front windows and gardens. Sometimes there were explosions of light, multicoloured, flashing, changing colour and shape. There were garlands strung through fences. I particularly liked the fence. Have I just... Right. Have you got me again? Good. I particularly liked the dyer's hedge. I recommend it to you when you go past. Curtains were left open, so passers-by could see the decorated trees with an angel or a star at the top. There were starbursts, icicles, and the occasional reindeer. And every so often, though, there was a dark patch, lit only by streetlights. But we journeyed on, and we were rewarded around the next corner with two houses almost competing with each other for glory. And finally, we drove up to her front door, and we looked up into the sky, and there was the most beautiful sickle moon. Our journey took around half an hour, 30 minutes of a reminder of the coming of Jesus, the light of the world. And we've just now, haven't we, had another reminder in our nativity play and also in our crib at the back, and I think it's disappeared again. This happened in the 8 o'clock. I pointed to another crib and it wasn't there, and I got it's behind you. Anyway, this morning we have just seen our nativity play. We have seen angels, shepherds, donkeys, magi, gifts, stars, sheep, and two people being obedient to God. And yet, despite all the colourful lights on display, somehow this year the darkness seems darker and more pervasive. Not just in our own sense of weariness and despair at the upheavals and injustices in our country, but at the news stories we see day after day of the atrocities of war and the violence inflicted on women and children, of the upheavals of those experiencing the effects of climate change. And the author of one letter written to the Church Times this week says he will find it intolerable to go to church and sing carols like O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. And the Reverend Sue Parfitt has suggested that we might like to rearrange our crib sets to place the baby Jesus somewhere in a landscape of rubble, with Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, angels, and the Magi frantically searching for him. And I thought about that a bit, and I went and found a heart-shaped stone that I have usually in the garden. And I wondered about perhaps placing stones in our crib set. And yet, thinking about our nativity play and our crib set, don't they represent some of the time that Jesus lived through? Aren't our current times so like the time when Jesus was born? And the time when the light, the animating power of our lives, came to shine out of and into the darkness. And I wonder if actually our nativity and crib sets simply reveal to us that abiding timelessness of Jesus' love and the time into which he was born and the time in which we live now. And when we lit the Advent candle, one of the prayers we said is to take our Christmas into the rest of our lives. We know, too, that the adult Jesus warned his disciples to expect light and darkness and to prepare themselves for dark times. So why are we surprised? Why do we feel so defeated? Maybe it's fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of dark thoughts, dark emotions, dark nights. Fear that maybe Jesus' light will be overcome by darkness. And I've been looking at this book. I'm a great fan of Barbara Brown Taylor. She's an American writer. And this book, Learning to Walk in the Dark, explores some of these thoughts about the role of darkness in our lives. And she explores some of this, sometimes literally, as she describes an experience she had of being in a place, walking through a place that was deliberately made as dark as possible, and yet it was full of familiar objects. She sometimes looks at it by looking at the Bible passages where God is with people in the dark. When looking with Abraham at the stars, when with Jacob, and when recounting the dreams that other people have had and their experience of God. And we saw in our nativity that the angels came to Joseph in a dream and persuaded him to stick with Mary. Barbara Brown Taylor contrasts the problems that can be caused by too much light, our inability to see the starry sky, the changes birds experience, being unable to distinguish day from night. And she names some of her own times of darkness, times when she was caring for aged parents or coping with an economic crisis. All the time, she was also experiencing a sense that Christian certainties were not helping her keep her fears at bay. She wonders if her book is an exploration of living with loss. She concludes that she has learned that while the sun always comes up, so it always goes down. And so she looks for blessings in the day and realizes that she also needs to look for blessings in the darkness. And maybe that's what Paul is saying to those in Thessalonica. He encourages them and us to rejoice and to give thanks, to pray for one another. He's writing to a community, and in communities, those who find it easier to rejoice and be thankful can bring comfort and reassurance to those who cannot. We often feel powerless, but we can use what power we have to befriend others, to listen, to offer prayers of comfort, to be the change we long to see, to demonstrate God's love to others with integrity and generosity, to look for the light and to share it with others. I know I have learned so much from witnessing the dignity of those who are suffering themselves, who are aware of the suffering of others, or of those who are able to reflect on and be honest about their own insecurities, while also acknowledging those who help them, either practically or through remembering them in prayer. Yesterday, I was driving down Southmead Road when I heard an ambulance siren. It was coming from behind me, and I joined a long line of cars pulling up and getting out of the way. And I've read a description of John the Baptist being like an ambulance siren. In John's Gospel, his role is more of a witness than as a baptizer, though we did hear about his baptizing today. And in that role of witness, he's the one who clears the road to enable us to see Jesus. And in a time of darkness, to see that God is still with us. Emmanuel, God with us, God with you, and God with me, in all the spheres of our lives. God with those we see in images on our screens. May we, this Advent, take the hope that Jesus offers. May we take the lights we see in gardens and in our houses and translate them into beacons of hope, finding in that hope the ability to contribute to Jesus' mission to feed the hungry, free those who are imprisoned, homeless, refugees, naked and sick, and to be part of God's grace and blessing. Amen.